Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Waking up in the body of some random dude he managed to find before All Might splattered his old body across the pavement wasn't new. The body stealing anyway. Entering a random restaurant and slipping into a bathroom, he checked his current body in the mirror. It was decent. With the healing quirk, the lung damage from chain smoking was fixed quickly, and honestly, he didn't mind the beard. Checking his pockets, he found a pack for cigarettes, a phone, a set of keys, and a wallet. Hisashi Midoriya lives in an apartment in the city of Mizutofu. Unlocking the phone with the fingerprint, he had checked the location and saw he was actually far from home. Shrugging, the villain had planned to do what he always did when he jumped into a new body. Lay low and work out his next move. Teleporting to an alley near the location, All for One had slipped a key into the lock, and when the door opened, he was being squeezed by a plump woman. Shujin, she had shouted, pressing her face into his chest. A quick mental probe had told him this was Inko Midoriya, but he had hit a wall before anything else could be found out, but he connected the dots. The ring on his new hand matched the one on her, and the family name had confirmed it. This was his new wife. Oka-san. He had hugged back. AFO had always been asexual. Having possessed so many different bodies, he had always just not really enjoyed the physical aspect of relationships. Usually the few times he got a married body, he'd have just killed them on the spot, but that would get the cops involved. I thought we lost you, Inko said. AFO had just ran a hand through her hair. Didn't care about human connections, but he definitely could fake it. I missed you, sweetie. So much. I just finished dinner. I have so much to catch you up on. Inko pulled him to the kitchen where his nose was met with the smell of cooked food. Izuku, sweetie, come down here. Izuku, AFO thought as another person entered the room. Green hair, freckled face, little on the shorter side. Wait, don't know. This dude had a kid. Mom, who's this? Izuku, this is your father. Inko said. The boy blinked and fainted. Oh dear. Inko said. What the hell just happened? Izuku, I woke up on the couch hearing Mama talking in the kitchen. Mama? Looking at the other person in the room, he had a vague feeling he knew him, but he couldn't remember ever meeting the man. Izuku, this is my husband Hisashi Midoriya. Inko said calmly, your father. Izuku just stared. The man had been slowly getting up when Izuku rushed forward. Papa, All for One, and I now have a crying child on me. The two-centenary-old villain thought, reaching for a paper towel and offering it to the boy he had gotten him to get off him. Everyone, let's sit down. Inko said. The food was served how AFO liked it. Quantity of quality. It was fantastic. So Izuku, how are? Honestly, he didn't need to ask to find out, but he was a father reconnecting with his son, so he had to play the part. What do you like to do? Oh, I like to study heroes and quirks. Izuku said, I keep all my ideas in a notebook. That's interesting. I'd love to read it. AFO said. The boy looked ready to start crying again. You would? Yes, I actually do a little theorizing myself. AFO said, but I don't keep a notebook. So how's school? AFO asked. It's fine. Izuku said. You're lying. AFO said, eyes narrowing. Who? I can tell something's wrong. What's going on? How could you? Boy, I can smell when someone's throwing me off. AFO had a polygraph quirk. It wasn't a true lie detector, but mixing his years of experience with it, he could tell something was up. Hisashi, Inko shouted. Talk. AFO said. The other kids are mean. Izuku said, bowing his head. Mean as in stealing your lunch money, or mean as in cornering you in a bathroom stall? AFO asked. Well, they never went after me in the bathroom, but... Izuku, are people hurting you? Inko asked, her eyes building up moisture. The boy was shaking and AFO changed tactics. I don't need exact details, just give me the reason why. Making body language appear as a calming, caring parent. Cause. He clenched his fists on Quirkless. AFO was silently staring at Izuku for what felt like an eternity to the greenets in the room. That's not all of it. AFO said. Inko looked at him, and AFO breathed. That wouldn't be enough. You're only telling half of it. Probably cause there's only half worth telling. Izuku muttered. Boy, start talking. Because I want to be a hero like All Might. Izuku shouted. The room was quiet. AFO had felt a weight drop to his stomach. It felt like looking at his brother all over again. The tears about being quirkless. Had it been 200 years earlier, he would have given the boy a quirk. 100 years earlier, he would have killed him outright for wanting to be like All Might. But now he had an idea. Look at me, AFO said. When the green-haired boy looked up, the face on the man had seemed so old compared to just a moment ago. You want to be a quirkless hero? AFO started. You want to be like All Might? Izuku nodded. Well, you can't, AFO said. Izuku bowed his head again and clenched his fists. Hey, look at me. AFO snapped his fingers. You can't have both. Who? You can either be like All Might or a quirkless hero. You can't do both, AFO said. Wah. All Might is a 7 feet 2 inches wall of muscle and had a quirk that makes him a pain in the butt to fight. You are skin and bones. AFO said, if you want to be a hero, here's so fatherly wisdom, start training. Wah. We're going to a gym. Tomorrow, AFO said. He needed to bulk up this body before unlocking his more powerful quirks, and a gym would be a perfect excuse for the change. Okay, Izuku said. Simple. Gym. Not simple. He needed his air mask. His form was perfect, and he was demonstrating how to use the equipment to Izuku. More in his own mind than in the gym. His usual contacts were probably scattering like roaches. Guess I need to actually order one. He hadn't noticed Izuku taking notes throughout the day. 2 weeks later. God damn it. AFO shouted into the phone, no you damn, well better build it the right way. What is it, dear? Inko asked. Got my mask wrong, AFO said, slamming the phone down. The air intake is completely wrong for my quirks, my fire. Are they going to take it back? No, they don't return face coverings. AFO threw the box across the room. What's the mask do, Dad? Izuku asked. Well, the one I ordered was meant to scrub particles out my lungs along with enriching my breathing. Along with a load ton of specific vapors, I can't use this with my fire. What do you want to do with it? Izuku asked. Get rid of it. I don't care about it. Just get it out my sight. The old villain shouted, kicking the box away and turning away. Not realizing, Izuku grabbed it and scurried off to his room. Looking at the mask's paperwork and the checking what it did, he adjusted the strap and put it on. When he hit the button, he had felt the air get pulled from his lungs. It was locked to his face and completely sealed. Izuku was panicking as he struggled for the instructions, but was suddenly filled with a fresh breath of mixed air. The machine had hissed as it had controlled his breathing. This was not actually calming. Time skip. Izuku was going through his book. His father had commented on a few entries. His father seemed to mutter just as much as him. Something about seeking knowledge and learning. So, Izuku asked, tapping his fingers together nervously. Not enough. You need to treat every quirk as something you are hunting. Dad said, handing him the book. Figure out methods to actually fight against these. You're too much of a fanboy. It will get you killed if you don't focus on something more useful. Izuku nodded and head upstairs. All for one. Hey Dad, can I buy some liquid nitrogen? Izuku called from his room. Get the gloves. He shouted, not paying attention. His minions required random stuff, and unfortunately, he did trust giving them access to his life savings. Okay, Jim. Izuku had asked his dad if he knew any fighting styles. Look, if you ever get in a man-to-man conflict, remember, throw the first punch and make it count. Fight dirty. Honor ain't work. And if they step to you, just shoot him. AFO said, going through what Izuku thought was some kind of work papers. Okay, Izuku said, writing it down. Also using anything you have. Pencils can pierce a human neck in a pinch, and a stapler has enough weight behind it to do something. Izuku nodded as he continued writing. AFO. Quit leaving your dogs, SHD, out front. AFO shouted to the neighbor. F off. The lady shouted. Well, like you're sneaking around your husband. AFO shouted. You don't know any. AFO held up a recording from what looked like the balcony. So you gonna start cleaning things you messed up, or is your hubby gonna find out you're sleeping around? AFO asked. How did you get that? Security cameras and body cams are fun, aren't they? AFO said with a grin. In truth, he had a photo quirk along with a digital transmission quirk. Okay, I'll pick up after Smoopsy. She said, just don't tell my husband. Of course. AFO said, putting his phone into his pocket and hitting the send. This whole incident can be like it never happened. Izuku had heard the whole thing and planned to order a body cam. The teachers couldn't say he was lying if he had proof. Izuku also thought about something. He could make a utility belt to store stuff to fight against quirks. Izuku had drawn up a rough sketch. Aldine middle. Izuku had woken up late and hadn't realized he had his mask on. What you got there, Deku? The fat guy with the wings said. A breathing mask. Izuku said. Let me see it. Noodle fingers said, reaching. No. Izuku said. And they took that personally. Principal's office. AFO and Inko had been called to the school. "Hello, Mrs. Midoriya. Who are you, sir?" The secretary asked. "This is my husband," Inko said, crossing her arms. "Izuku's father. What's going on?" AFO asked, crossing his arms. "The principal can explain," she said. After being let in, there were 5 people behind the door. One AFO recognized immediately. "What happened?" Inko asked, seeing Izuku was covered in bruises. His injuries weren't even treated. "I can't find a single picture of Izuku with a black eye. Midoriya attacked 3 students unprovoked," the principal said. "What's the damage?" AFO asked. "The medical bills." "No, I want to know what my son did to them." "He had ripped my grandson's wing off," Dr. Kyudai Garaki said. "And he tied my baby's fingers together after breaking them," a woman shouted. "He broke the brat's nose." A blonde woman sitting next to a properly bandaged and clean boy that he could tell was her son. "So what did they do?" AFO asked, crossing his arms. "Young." "Silence," AFO said, glaring at the overweight principal. "Boy, they tried to take my mask." Izuku said, "I told them no. When I started having trouble breathing, I panicked." "You crippled 2 students," the principal said. And AFO asked, if they're brave enough to corner a quirkless child, then they should accept the consequences. "My grandson might never fly again," Kyudai said. "Tell me exactly why his or your life matters to me," AFO said, causing a bolt of fear to run through everyone. Inko was about to speak when Kyudai had gotten up and bowed 90 degrees. "I apologize for my grandson's actions. He should be apologizing to my baby," Karen shouted. "Give me the security footage," AFO said. Izuku reached into his pocket and pulled out the recording of the whole fight. "What is that?" the principal asked. "I put a camera in my mask," Izuku said. AFO could have sworn the principal was about to wet himself. Wiretapping is illegal. He tried to get anything to prevent Izuku from pressing play. The blonde boy had dove for it, but AFO had punted him across the room, hands in his pocket, and a glare at the explosion user. The recording told the conflict. "You think you can say no, you useless Deku? How about we cut that off your face?" The glare from the ancient evil had put the room in their place. "If Izuku will delete the footage." "No, this won't be deleted," AFO said, "but I'm fully willing to teach this school something about treating people fairly. Look, Mr. Midoriya, the principal started you son is a troublemaker and delusional. What cause he wants to be a hero?" AFO asked. "Yes, in his grades." AFO huffed out a flame and shoved the balding man away from the computer. "What are you doing?" "Straight A's. It's strange the scores don't match the report cards," AFO said, having ripped the password out the man's head. "Alcohol on campus? You know that's usually something you tell the parents." We. The principal was cowering on the ground. "You." AFO pointed to the young boy. "Spill why the alcohol was on campus." "I don't know." "Nonsense," Izuku muttered. AFO opened his mouth and a ball of fire was charging in it. "Okay, the extras thought it would be funny to frame Deku for drinking and using trigger. Bakuga said I didn't drink any." AFO looked to the principal, the Karen, to Izuku, and finally let out a long exhale. The room was getting foggy from the amount of smoke. "You 4, get out of here." AFO pointed to the Bakugas, Karen, and Garaki. The doctor had shoved them out. Karen and the adult blonde had tried to argue, but Inko had looked into her friend's eyes. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. When the door was shut and locked, AFO had walked to the principal's prone form and kicked him in the ribs. "We have some business to discuss later." Garaki had waited out the school and intercepted the family. "Mr. Midoriya, may I speak with you privately?" "Go home, you two," AFO said, ruffling Izuku's hair. "Sir?" Garaki asked. "It's a small country, isn't it?" AFO said. "I didn't expect you to already have a new body." Garaki said, "Is this kid another backup?" "No, this is a cover," AFO said, "and the boy is just something that lives with it." "The boy's quirkless, you know," Garaki said. "And he won't be getting a quirk." AFO said, "If he fails his goals, we can make something out of him. Maybe one of the Noma projects." "And if he succeeds?" Garaki asked. AFO shrugged. "Well, one less hero. That is a challenge for the league." A few months later, Izuku was now 12 in a new school. His dad told him he marked his quirk under Keter on his file, so if he was ever asked to show it, he could deny. "It's easier to say you have one you can't use than to openly admit it." Dad said you need to lay low, make friends, hone your skills. Izuku stayed quiet as the teacher had introduced the new students. "Midoriya, why don't you tell us about yourself?" "Well, I like Katsudon, studying quirks and learning new stuff," Izuku said. Why do you have a mask on? One kid shouted. It's not for my quirk. Izuku said. Yes. Peter. The teacher said Midoriya can't take it off, and please refrain from attempting to. Himiko Toga, would you like to say anything? A girl stood up as well. Hi, my name's Himiko, and I like cute things, knives and stabbing cute things. Also vital fluid, she said. The class gasped, but Izuku raised his hand. Is your quirk blood-based? Yes, I can turn into people if I drunk some of their vital fluid, she said, smiling her fanged teeth. Himiko, that's understandable, Izuku said, cutting her off. If you have that quirk, it should be a natural thing for you. Really? Himiko asked, looking at the boy wide-eyed. Yeah, look at Vlad King, Izuku said. Who's Vlad King? One random girl asked. He's a retired military personnel who joined the Hero Association, Izuku said, flipping to a recent page of the man. He has that quirk too. He handed the book to Himiko. A blood hero? Himiko asked, reading it. Hero name, Vlad King. Quirk, blood control. Himiko was trembling. A real hero with a blood quirk? Her voice in a whine. Yeah, and he has said one of his major problems he had growing up was the vital fluid craving and his stabbing reflex. Izuku said. Stabbing reflex? Was the question to all of the students. Look it up on the projector, Izuku exclaimed to the teacher. Vlad King interview. Okay. The teacher did, and it showed the class. So what can you tell us about your quirk? Well, Siv, I can tell you it's a pain in the arse, but with proper diet and discipline, I made it far. What are your thoughts on the blood crazy, often associated with quirks such as yours? Nonsense. Utter nonsense. Structure and self-control are a major factor, but our bodies are tuned to crave vital fluid. We are born of it, made men by it. We die for it. If you try and deny it, you will just end up like the junkies you see in the streets. We're human, that we just need a little red. Himiko had looked at the screen, openly crying before tackling Izuku in a hug. Well, this is a good day. My students taught me something, the teacher said, smiling. Izuku smiled. Things were looking up. AFO. Izuku had been off somewhere on a school trip for a few weeks, and Inko was out with Mitsuki. Time to do some villainy. Looking into contacts and found who was currently on top of the underground. Kai Chisaki. AFO said, leaning back. Airy POV. Stop. It hurts. They had her hooked up to a machine. Vital fluid in her, vital fluid out. She could only watch as the machine made more bullets, is what she recalled. Daddy was looking over the new supply. Guess who's back? A voice said. Daddy turned and saw something out of view. The sounds of the doctor's screams made Airy smile. Daddy had reached for a gun, and the bullets were heard dinging off something. Bubble shield. The voice said, this is a new one actually. Picked it up when I decided I wanted your quirk. AFO. Looking at the entire room, he noticed the vat. Inside was a little girl that looked around 6. Who's this? AFO asked, holding Kai up by his hair. My daughter. Overhaul said. AFO raised an eyebrow. And pray tell what she's doing in there. Her quirk is a curse. It needs to be used to cure the plague on the world. The Yakuza said. What's the quirk called? AFO asked. He loved it when people's brain panicked when asked. Kai was trying for an excuse, but lifting him up to eye level. Well? Rewind. She can return something to a previous state, Kai said as a slight pressure was applied to his skull. He could get his hand within reach of anything. Well, thanks for the quirk and the girl, AFO said, smiling. Wah. A second hand grabbed Kai's arm and just yanked it off. When the dragon attempted to fix the injury, he was shocked to see his quirk gone. A foot stomped on his legs, and the knee down was just ripped off. His body was thrown against a wall. Eri. The vat was disassembled by the very quirk that made it. Who are you? Eri asked. My name is All for One, he said. Thank you. How did you do that? I took your daddy's quirk, AFO said. Can you take mine? She asked. She couldn't see the eyebrows raised behind the black mask. Why would you want that? Because I want to be normal, Eri said, crying. The villain was quick to put a hand on her head. You are normal. You just need to forget what your daddy says. Forget? Eri asked. Forget. AFO echoed. Forget. Midoriya residence. Dad, you'll never guess what I learned in Tibet, Izuku said excitedly as AFO walked into the house. Shujin. Who is this? Inko asked. Inko, Izuku. Meet my half-brother's daughter. Eri. Midoriya. AFO said. Oh, you have family? Inko asked. I had family until. AFO made a face that said it wasn't something you told children. We can talk about it later. Hi, sweetie, my name's Inko Midoriya. Inko Midoriya, Eri said, confused as if trying to put pieces together. Wait, if your last name is that? I'm married to your uncle, making me your aunt, Inko said. Eri had looked at her then AFO, then started tearing up. Going for a hug. Someone stop her, she's gonna. The apartment flooded as 3 people started crying. AFO had grabbed Izuku and opened the balcony door. We have flood insurance, right? AFO asked. Yeah, Izuku said. Auntie. Eri said. Yes, and this is your cousin Izuku. Inko said. Eri had jumped to hug Izuku and started crying again. Suddenly her horn started glowing. Izuku. AFO shouted, but his body didn't start changing. A green light surrounded both of them and spun around them. Izuku had lifted her up and continued hugging her. Look, Dad, Izuku said as the green light started forming around the two. AFO and Inko jaws dropped. What the? AFO shouted. Sweetie, is that? Inko started. Don't go near the light. AFO stopped her. Grabbing an apple off the table and throwing it into the ring of green, it reverted into a flower, then into a bud. It's Eri's quirk. AFO said, but why is it doing that? That's me. Izuku said, smiling. Watch me, Eri. Izuku did a motion with his hands, and the light formed a weird circle in his palm. Turning his wrist clockwise, it aged the bud. The bud bloomed into a flower, then expanded into a full apple. Turning his wrist counterclockwise, the apple shrank back into a flower, and he put it behind Eri's ear. AFO walked over and put a hand on Izuku's head. He could see the cage around Izuku's head. It had always been there, a natural thing when growing up around someone like Inko. But now it was strengthened, his mind fortified by something. When he attempted to activate his quirk, nothing happened. AFO was worried it was affected by Eri, but no, Izuku was completely quirkless. Okay, explain. AFO said as they all sat down. Well, remember how the class trip was to learn about a group of monks from Kamartage? Izuku asked. Yes, you wouldn't stop talking about taking your little girlfriend to see it. Inko said. Not my girlfriend. Izuku muttered. Face red and sweaty. Continue. AFO said. Okay, it all started when the class was given a tour. Flashback. Getting off the plane, the class were all grouped together in pairs. Now, class, we have a chance to learn from actual monks, so remember, no, there is no hidden leaf village. No, they can't teach you shadow cloning. No, they can't run on water. Keep your weeb stuff out of it. Himiko was hugging Izuku's arm. The trek up the stairs was slow, and many students were exhausted. Izuku was fine, and Himiko was hanging on him. Get to the point. I don't want to hear about my son's girlfriend. Not my girlfriend. They arrived at a temple and were given a tour. Izuku had asked about breathing from one of them. Given a demonstration, Izuku and Himiko had fallen behind, but both had seemed to get the breathing down. Izuku had removed his mask and took in the mountain fresh air. In the middle of it all, Izuku just started feeling around him. Boy, what is your name? The bald monk asked. Izuku. Izuku. You must meet the Ancient One. And that's all I can say. Izuku said. Boy. AFO said. I literally can't say. Like I try to say it, but I'm just blocked from saying it. Izuku said, scratching his neck. AFO didn't want to risk reading Izuku's mind at the moment. Show me what you can do right now. This light stuff I can shape into stuff, but I only know how to. Izuku said, they told me I needed to practice on my own. Okay, we'll work on this. AFO said. Meanwhile, Mommy, Daddy, I'm home. Himiko shouted. When her parents had looked at her, she had held out a drop of vital fluid from her finger. Stings of red spun up and surrounded her hand. Look what I can do, Himiko said. The two screamed, rushing away. AFO had not slept. He was trying to figure out what was up with his son. He knew Izuku and Inko were sensitive to any mental quirks. Izuku had often stopped what he was doing and turned looking for something whenever he tried to check their minds. Those ESPers. Izuku walked into the kitchen with Eri on his back. Cereal today, AFO said. A blue hand appeared next to Izuku and started pulling out bowls and silverware. When it grabbed the cereal, AFO reached over and poked it. Yep, solid. And his quirk activator wasn't disrupting it. When it was able to open the fridge and bring an unopened gallon of milk, he had just had to speak. Okay, what is that? AFO asked. Oh, it's called Hand of Herald. Izuku said, putting the milk back and closing the door. A magic user so lazy he created spells so he didn't have to do anything. And what can it do? AFO asked. Well, it can't lift anything over 10 pounds, but I can basically do anything a regular hand can with 60 feet of buffer. Izuku said. AFO put a hand to his chin. Can you pick pockets? Izuku nodded, and I can pick locks if I have my kit. And you can do this how many times? Infinitely. Izuku said, using the hand to hold the spoon. What else? AFO asked. Izuku waved his hand, and his coffee cup, having gotten cold from him being up already, was warm again. Another wave, and a tiny crown appeared in Izuku's hand, and he put it on Eri's head. Izuku ended with a sparkling effect in his hand. Eri was clapping while AFO just blinked. What is that? He asked. Prestidigitation. Izuku said. That's it. AFO asked. No name for it. It's actually a spell made by like 20 wizards, so it doesn't have a single creator. Izuku said. Himiko can do stuff too. We were gonna. I'm interrupting your date. I need to know what the hell you're doing. AFO said. Well, I guess. Izuku said. Trash beach. Around 10, Himiko arrived to see Izuku, and AFO were waiting for Himiko. Hey Izu, what's your dad doing here? I'm trying to understand what in the hell is going on with my son. He said. He just wants to see what we can do. Izuku said. They set up some random junk for target practice. Himiko pulled out her dagger and pricked her finger. Just like with Eri, strands of something was spun around her hand. But in her offhand, they crystallized into a fine blade. Izuku nodded, and Himiko aimed at one of the targets. Out the circle, a crackling beam of energy shot down one of the cans. 3 more shots all missed. Well? AFO asked, looking at Izuku. Izuku pointed 3 fingers, and blue versions of the crystals from Himiko all hit at the same time. Not one shot missed. AFO watched another few pieces get set up. Himiko had missed a few shots, but Izuku did another shot and didn't miss. I can only cast with as many strands of magic I harvest. Izuku showed a string. The string are woven around in specific ways, and I can collect 2 strands at a time. I have to write down how the strands are woven in my book. AFO watched Izuku pulling another strand out of nowhere. Why can she do it basically limitless? Oh, I'm using my own vital fluid. Himiko said, smiling. Nothing in this world is free. Izuku said. Himiko is trading for the power. I'm pulling the strands straight out of the multiverse. I don't have agreements with other beings, so I have only myself. So it's either work your own way up, or trade more power for being someone's beach. AFO said. I ain't nobody's beach. Izuku said. I am. Himiko said, leaning on Izuku, causing his face to go red. Good. AFO said. Do you have any other spells? Izuku made his shields again, and Himiko swung at him. He parried the blade. Can you do anything with more damage? Izuku nodded and pulled out his book. A few spells I had written down from the monks. Running a finger over a mess of circles and languages, I had no idea what they were. He folded his book and breathed. Ever since I was a young boy, I've dreamed of this moment. Izuku said, holding his hands out. Flame of Jericho. AFO blinked. I tried to look up fire breathing, but they said that takes a higher understanding. Okay, so the strings. AFO started. What happens if you try the same thing Himiko does? Izuku held out his arm, and Himiko poked it. After a few minutes of Izuku attempting to mold the strings into a blade, it failed. Try pulling a strand from Himiko. Izuku did, and instead of red, a purple one appeared. The string seemed to bend into a new circle, and suddenly Izuku changed into Himiko. They all waited, and after an hour Izuku changed back. You just used my quirk. Himiko shouted. AFO had taken a step away from his son. Izuku rested and tried to do the same thing. And failed. Izuku thought, and snapped his fingers. I need to write down the circle. Using Himiko's string, it's easy because it's her natural ability. To shape a string myself, I need to have it prepared. Izuku pulled another string from Himiko and branded the circle into a blank page. Okay, let's see. Mask of Himiko. Izuku said as his body changed into Himiko and then shifted into a replica of his father. He tried a third and started looking tired. Okay, so Himiko quirk is a 1 strand. I wonder if I can. Reaching for AFO, Izuku had touched him before he could stop the boy. 9 strings appeared and shaped into a giant array around Izuku. We'll put GIF here. Izuku had folding the array into his palm and branded it into his book. Izuku had unknowingly just copied the most powerful spell a mortal could cast, and would forget. AFO just punched him in the head. Izuku. With a wave of his hand, Himiko didn't remember what just happened. AFO had been tempted to burn the book, but after looking, he knew his son would question the book and decided to just make sure his son doesn't attempt to cast it. Ripping out the pages, he stuffed them into his pants. Waking up the 2, he told them they had gotten hit by a piece of debris. Midoriya living room. Izuku had taken to Eri well. Himiko loved her. The problem was her crying. AFO couldn't bleach the torture fully, so she had reacted to kindness the same way Izuku did. Izuku had taken her out to the beach. Himiko was waiting there, so they could work on their spells. Okay, Eri, we're gonna work on creating strings, Izuku said, smiling. Meanwhile, in another universe. If I can just get this. Izumi Comstock was working to complete her mother's work. Izumi, get your scrawny, but down here for dinner. Izumi looked at herself in the mirror near the entrance of her family home in the floating city or Columbia, looking over her shoulder and leaning. Doesn't seem that skinny, she said, wiggling. Heading to the kitchen, her father had dinner on the table. So, he started. You're still trying to finish your mother's work. I'm making progress, she said. Back in other universe. Himiko, let's go. Eri said, I'm gonna learn magic like you and Big Brother. Give me a second. Hair's giving me a problem, Himiko said. After putting up her now signature messy hairstyle, she grabbed a gift she had gotten when she had learned why Izuku's dad wore a mask. I gonna get a mask? Eri asked. Izuku hadn't told Himiko about him lying about why he wore one. It was actually really useful for anxiety, and she just thought he had some kind of toxic breath. You don't need it, Himiko said. Onaikin wears one. Uncle wears one. You wear one. Because it's kawaii, Himiko said, putting it on. Beach. A chunk of the area had been cleared by the two's antics around the area. Izuku had gone over all the importance of the motions and spells. Eri had managed to pull strings, but not hold them. The strands flicking, hitting an old car, now looking factory new. The next one had hit a seagull, turning back into an egg. Eri had looked about to cry. Weave the strand through your fingers, Izuku said, showing her. Grabbing her hand. The strand weaving through his fingers and forming a circle. Eri had stood up, took a deep breath, and tried it again. When she had gotten to the part where she had to pull her fists back, her arms started to shake, and it fizzled out. Eri was shaking. Something in her was shouting she was going to get hurt, and that made her more upset, but that just caused more of her quirk. As she had broken down, more and more strands had unconsciously being produced. Eri. Who? Eri looked and saw. It's okay, Izuku said, holding up the symbol. Maybe try one hand. Himiko more guessed than anything. Eri nodded. Here, take the circle from my hand, Izuku said. Eri reached out and curled her finger. The ring was spinning counterclockwise. Eri had accidentally been adding more strings, making slowing it hard. My arm hurts, Eri said. Now try pulling with your off hand, Izuku said. Eri did, and the rings formed up her arm. Look, I'm doing it, Eri shouted. Himiko was cheering and Izuku was smiling back at her. Hello, civilians, a voice said. It's the rabbit hero, Mirko, Izuku shouted. Mirko. When I had started patrol, I wasn't expecting much. When I saw two masked individuals with a small child, I had started trailing them. I was ready to jump out until I saw what her quirk did to that bird. When she had official done whatever it was they were trying, I had approached. The rabbit hero, Mirko, Izuku exclaimed. Right, and I was wondering what's going on here, Mirko said, looking at them. Just helping my sister with her quirk, Izuku said. And you do that by breaking quirk usage laws? Mirko asked, raising an eyebrow. Honestly, she couldn't book a kid if he was legitimately trying to help. No, I'm not breaking any laws. Green said, my quirk is a Keter breath attack. This right here is different. The green light was definitely something that she was wondering about. Keter wasn't something to mess with. Keter meant you had to have round-the-clock control, like 13. Mirko was ranked at safe, having no effect on external parties. My quirk is transform, Blonde said, taking off her mask, revealing a set of fangs. If I get vital fluid from someone, I can't change into them. My quirk is called rewind. Eri said, when I get scared, things start turning backwards. Mirko sucked in through her teeth. If the HPSC heard about it, she'd be branded Keter for sure. Maybe even Apollyon and. Okay, so since I don't want this getting around, I'm gonna help you. Mirko said, this light thing. Magic, Green said. Right. If she can use this, she'll be fine, right? Mirko asked, getting a nod. Okay. So, she had honestly no idea how to even think of how to actually help. Oh, I know. Himiko said, Izu can fight the bunny. Rabbit, Mirko said. She wasn't cute or fluffy, and she'd break anyone's hand attempting to try and disprove that claim by petting her. But hell yeah, I'm game for a fight. A knife manifested in the blonde's hand, and the green one had just reached for her. Don't touch me, Mirko said. I'm not, I just need to try something, Izu said. A string was pulled and seemed to be pressed into a book. Bunny hop, Green said as he touched his own shoulder and jumped. Getting a decent clearance, actually. What was that? Mirko asked. I can create these strands of energy. Usually I can only make 2 strands myself, but I can copy someone by pulling one of their strands and copying it into my book. Izu said, interesting. Mirko actually loved magic tricks, but didn't let anyone know. But let me see you use it in a fight. The 2 teens were standing at the ready. Izuku had the circles from Eri readied. If he was going to use it against a pro hero, he'd need all the help he could, and to get a better understanding to help Eri learn. Himiko jumped at Mirko with a vital fluid dagger ready. A simple swipe had pushed her arm away. Mirko flicked Himiko on the forehead. Too slow. Izuku was messing with the strings, and Mirko had rushed over to him. When she went to flick him, he raised 2 fingers, and a dome formed around him. She had kicked it repeatedly, but it hadn't budged. Magic missile. Izu shouted, sending a group of shards at her. She tried to dodge, but all connected. Then a knife had dug into her back. Ganging up on someone bigger than you? Smart. Mirko said, slamming her, but into Himiko, sending her flying as the blonde had attempted to run. Turning to rush after her, when she was more than 40 feet from Izu, he had seemed to finish what he was doing. Pointing at the rabbit hero, he said, time in a bottle. Mirko suddenly had a feeling as if her weight doubled, like the earth itself was against her body. What the? The blonde had rushed forward and shanked her, running back out of reach. She couldn't get off for retaliation, and when she had tried to go after the blonde, but felt as if she was back when she first started training. This is 3 strings. Izu said, I wonder. Using 1 green strand, he had pointed to Himiko and tried to cast something spring step. It didn't work. Okay, hold on. Izuku said. Himiko had finally gotten reached, and Mirko had punted her towards Izuku. I don't feel so good. Oh, it's a touch range. Izuku said, touching Himiko's spring step. The blonde girl suddenly seemed much faster. The pro had gotten knifed in the throat. I'm sorry, Himiko said, looking at the now pissed rabbit standing over her. I was aiming for your arm. The last thing both girls saw was Green Boy rushing over. Okay, let's see if this works. Mass heal. Later, Mirko woke up feeling great. Looking around, she saw everyone was up. What happened? I used Eri's strings to heal you. Izuku said. Sorry for stabbing your throat. Himiko said. Good hassle. Mirko said. She was actually impressed with the squirts game. Okay, Eri, remember, separate the strings. Izuku said. Eri held up her hands and formed the ring. It started turning clockwise. She flicked her finger, and it hit the recently restored car, turning it into dust. Izuku opened a second notebook and wrote, okay, try that with 1 string. Eri did, and nothing happened. Izuku had pointed to a fridge, and Eri had walked over to it. The thing disintegrated. Hey kid, what are you planning to do in life? Mirko asked. I'm planning to join UA. Izuku said. Me too. Himiko said. How old are you two? Mirko asked. 13. Both of them said. Well, I have an offer. Mirko said, why not join my hero office? I can help train you too. I'm in. Both shouted. Well, I guess introductions are in order. Mirko said, I'm the rabbit hero, Mirko. Himiko Toga. Himiko said, and I'm gonna be just like the blood hero, Vlad King. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I'm gonna be the #1 hero. Izuku said, my name is Eri Midoriya. Eri said, jumping into Izuku's arms, and I want to be like my big brother. Mirko smiled at the sight of the little girl being carried by her brother.